What happens when independent music artists stop chasing followers and starts building a tribe? In a world where most creators are stuck in hustle mode, chasing streams, chasing likes, and random algorithm wins, Jared Deraj Wells made a powerful shift. He stopped playing someone else's game, created his own system that helped him land his own music with massive brands and companies like ESPN's First Take, Netflix, Disney, Samsung, and most recently, the game Fortnite. And then he decided to take this method with him and build a community, build a movement, build a tribe where now he helps independent hip hop artists license their music with big brands while mastering how to make music for TV and film. Hey, Funk Roberts here, and welcome back to the Tribe Membership Show, where we help creators, entrepreneurs, coaches, and community builders turn memberships into communities. And today I'm super excited because today we have a guest who was one of our very first students in our 90-day tribe program. He was actually part of the initial cohort where we took entrepreneurs and we helped them build their tribe membership. Well, we helped them build the foundation of their tribe membership in 90 days with our proven method. And today, in this episode, I brought on Jared, or Deraj Wells. Deraj is what his name is. I wanted him to show that when you make some of these transitions into building more of a tribe membership, it's proof that combining his mission, combining his method, and then creating a tribe brand and tribe membership is literally what's brought him to where he is today. And I'm excited to share this episode with you guys. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great because you're going to learn what wasn't working for him before he joined the tribe method. And listen, he had a community before. He had a community of over 4,000 people, but it still wasn't where he wanted it to be. It still wasn't bringing him the revenue. So we're going to dive into his origin story, where he was before, because I feel sometimes you can connect with that. And then we're going to talk about some of the key shifts that he made that unlocked more connection inside his membership, more retention, and of course, more revenue. And some of the powerful ways that he's serving his creators now through the Rep Indie community. And then also, what are some of the tribe strategies that he literally implemented that you can apply to your community or to your membership or to your business to help not only just build customers or members, but build lifelong members. So I'm really excited. And listen, if you've ever felt stuck trying to build a membership, if you've ever felt stuck trying to grow your community or even just grow a loyal fan base, then this episode is going to be the blueprint for you. It's going to be a turning point. It's going to be insightful. It's going to be purposeful. And I cannot wait for you to dive into this episode. I'm the Funkster, and now it's your turn to enjoy this episode. Let's get it done.
Welcome to the Tribe Membership Show.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the podcast. I'm really excited today because today we have a special guest. This is Jared Wells, Deraj of Rep Indie, who was part of our 90-day tribe. And I wanted to have him on the podcast just to talk about, what his business was and the journey from before he came to us and joined the 90-day tribe method coaching to afterwards and during and all the things that happened and some of the things that he's learned. But I think it will be very inspirational for some of you out there. But just to give you a little bit of a kind of an overview of what Jared does, Deraj does, he'll explain that in a second. He has Rep Indie. It's an online community, an online artist community that teaches artists how to license their music with big brands and influencers while they master how to make music that works for TV, that works for film, and also make money sustainably with a music career. So welcome, Deraj. Welcome, Jared, for being on here. How you doing, buddy?
Come on, man. You already know what time you're on. I'm super excited. Appreciate you, my guy.
I appreciate you very, very much. Okay, so why don't we back up and talk about who you are and how you created your prior membership first, or your prior program first.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know me, most know me as Deraj, which is my artist name. Real name is Jared, which is Deraj spelled backwards. Fun fact for everybody. I've had an interesting journey just within my music career. So I started predominantly as a signed artist with a Christian hip hop label back in 2014, 2013 is when I got signed, was there for a number of years. and left around the middle of 2019 just to go fully independent. And a couple of decisions, a couple of things, circumstances kind of influenced that decision. But one of the big things was I felt like I'd kind of hit a ceiling with my career, and also just getting older and wasn't really wanting to tour as much anymore, and wasn't seeing the same type of revenue and touring interest and streaming and all that kind of stuff, even though I was still putting out really good music and people were still responding to it, yada yada. But something happened during that, I guess 5 years that I was with the label. Early on, I'd gotten one of my songs used and picked up for ESPN, one of their programming. It was First Take is what it was, which I didn't even know what First Take was at the time.
The biggest
Yeah. Yeah, and they had picked it up. They thought one of my songs from my first EP, fit for their programming, and that just kind of sowed a seed for me of like, yo, this is a crazy one, is a crazy opportunity, and also two, it was crazy that it was a song that I had fully wrote, recorded, produced before I'd ever got on the label. It just so happens that I released it under the label, so it was really validating for me to see like something that I created without, label grooming was good enough for ESPN. So that just started me on this journey of like, how do I do this more? Like, how do I, get my music into TV and film or with different brands? Because I think that one placement probably paid me the equivalent of what I was getting paid for to come out and do a show, you know what I mean? And with all these
Right.
other added benefits. So that became my big focus. Once I left the label, I knew like, I just need to figure out this thing. And so, to speed up the story, ended up taking a 6-month course. That's why I'm really big on community and memberships, but took a 6-month course on how to, license my music to brands. After that, I started to see a lot of traction in a short amount of time. After that, probably like a year or so after that, I was able to, go full time with music and leave my job, which I wasn't able to do during my time with the label. And it was all because of, licensing my music to brands. And saw my first 6 figures ever doing this, and, done multiple 6 figures. And that turned into me realizing that this is is almost like the best kept secret for independent artists. And I know, if I ask any artist if they want to learn how to get their music in TV and film, the answer is instantly yes. But also I was having a lot of my peers ask me how I was doing it. Like, how am I getting placements with Disney? How am I getting placements with Netflix? How am I getting placements with Samsung? You know what I mean? And so we started, just teaching people and putting people on game. And, I was almost like V1 of a, membership or community was on Clubhouse back when Clubhouse was a thing. And so we got our club up to like 4,000 members at one point. You know what I mean? It was free. We was on there week after week, just doing interviews with people, answering questions, all this other kind of stuff. But I also knew I wanted to create something a little bit more systematic for folk, because that's just how my brain works. And so that's how I got into the course creation space. I took I think it was like a 3-month course with Amy Porterfield, and just learn how to structure a course, market a course, build it so that, it could help, get people across the finish line in a really predictable way, but also, end up building another revenue stream.
I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to go back a little bit. So, because there's some important things that you said in here that I think people who are at a point where you were may want to hear this. So, when you say you're an artist, like you say you're a producer, singer, and performer, like you do all like what exactly artist? What does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, when I say artist, it's kind of all the things, but and even within our community, this is one of the things we did while I was during the 90-day was define what I mean and what we mean when we say artist. And for
Right.
us, it's a front-facing artist persona. And so when I show up in the
Oh,
market, you get the full experience of an artist, and I'm visible.
okay.
As far as some of the nuances of that, I do songwrite. I can produce. I don't produce anymore, but my predominantly, I'm songwriting and performing and showing up as an artist
Okay. So
in that
then
regard.
so then you were on a label. So you're on this label, you have this song that you wrote, produced, and sang, or
Yep.
is it just music? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you did.
Did all
So
the
that
things.
okay, you did all the things,
Yeah.
and then
Everything to make that record, I did it.
okay, and then ESPN goes, "I want that for my show," and then you're like, I got paid a ton of money. And I'm not getting, I mean, more, I mean, great for the label that I was on. And probably you learned a lot being on the label. But what made you decide? Like, what was the thing that said, I think I can do this on my own? Because that's a big jump to go from I'm on a
Yeah.
label. Now, I'm not in the industry, but like having the comfort of being on a label, and you said like grooming to like, I think I can do this on my own. First, so two questions. What made you decide it? But the second question, which is even more important, is were other people doing this? Like, was there like, oh well, Jim, John, Phil, Carl, and Tim did it, and I just did it, or was it like I did it, and I think I could do it again? Like, what
Yeah. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Good question. So what gave me the confidence to leave the label and just go head first in it? And this is also a little bit unique to my background because my introduction to the label was actually through a different hat that I wear, which is design and branding. So I was the art director and I guess creative director for the label for a period of time. They later found out that I did music, ended up getting signed. Why that's important is because I realized that after a while, once I understood just what it took to be an artist, a lot of the things and services that the label was providing, I realized I could figure out a way to do this on my own because I'm very self-managed. You know what I mean? I'm very organized and I'm probably one of the rare artists that's equally strategic and organized as I am creative. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I was like, I can build systems around this stuff. Like I already know how to market myself because I'm doing it, literally for the label. And even for the songwriting, like it was a point where the label wasn't even really involved in the records that I was making. It was just like they're just kind of giving, 2 cents here and there and helping, distribute it. And then as the music landscape changed, distribution even changed. So I can distribute myself. So there was just a lot of things that gave me the encouragement after being there for so many years. Like I feel like I can do this on my own. I'm designing my own merch, all this kind of stuff. And also going into the licensing space, I knew that one, my focus wasn't going to be touring and doing shows. My
Mhm.
focus also wasn't going to be on trying to grow my social media following. My focus also wasn't going to
Mhm.
be on trying to run up my Spotify number. So that cuts out a lot of things that the label, I would probably lean on the label for, you know what I
Right.
mean? I'm just like, I'm not really focusing on that. I'm very singular on how can I make great music that brands need and get it licensed most often. And to answer your other question, no, there really wasn't anybody else in the space that I could readily point to say like, oh, they got the blueprint, they know how to do it. I found some people later on in my journey, but early on, it wasn't really a thing. Nobody was talking about it, and nobody really knew how to get into it either. And so that
Right.
became like, one of those areas of like, I got to figure out how to do more of this because it's a no brainer.
Right. That's incredible. So you're like the fact that you're a pioneer, you're literally a pioneer in this industry in a sense, because if no one was readily doing it that you didn't know of and no one and it wasn't something that everyone was doing, then whether you're the first, second, third, you're still the pioneer as far as I'm concerned, because you had to literally figure it out. Right?
Yeah, and here's the thing too. I was the first artist on the label to ever get a placement, so it was new for everybody at the time.
Right.
And then also within our space, and so I was a part of the Christian hip hop space, is what it was, because it was a Christian hip
Mhm.
hop label.
Yeah.
But even if we go a little broader out, there still wasn't a lot of independent artists who knew about this, and so even to this day, and that's why I think um, why I picked the niche that I did.
Yeah.
There's still not a lot of awareness. There's more awareness around it, but there's not a lot of know-how of how to do it. And so I'm
Mm.
still probably one of the more vocal people in the space that will help other artists and are championing this thing. Even though there's a lot of voices out there, but there's not a lot specifically in the hip hop space
Yeah.
that talk about it. So I'm one of the main ones that are just like championing, this.
Yeah, that's incredible. And just for the listeners again, so basically you after you started to figure it out, because now you mentioned Disney, you mentioned yes,
Netflix,
yeah,
Samsung,
Netflix, like
Hulu,
yeah,
all of
Samsung.
them.
So
Yeah.
like so like you're saying you make your own music and then you're licensing it out to brands, to companies, to films on your own
Hmm.
solo, and they're readily saying, yes, we want this. That's what you're
Yep.
saying now. Okay,
Yep.
that's huge. Okay, so that was important for me to say because the fact that you did it on your own, the fact that you proved over and over and over again with massive companies, so now you have that expertise. 100% you have the expertise. And so that next step from there was people are asking you, hey, Daraj, how are you freaking doing this? Like,
Yeah.
what is it? How are you doing it? What was that like? Now, all of a sudden, you have all these people coming up to you, probably some predominant people in the industry, maybe some people from um, some other genres were coming up to
Hmm.
you. Like, how was that making you feel, and what was going on in your mind during those times?
Definitely. And I do want to shout out too. There were some people that were really helpful for me when I started to make that transition out of the label to understand licensing. One was my boy's name's Jesse. He owns a company called Music Makers. And he, again, was one of the few that had been doing it for a while and nobody knew about it, but he would answer all of my questions. Then my manager at the time, her and her husband used to do it. So I would pick their brain, but it wasn't a lot of people that had access to. But as far as people starting to come up to me afterwards, um, it was cool in one sense and really validating because it the roles kind of flipped where I was always trying to figure out like how to get my music career off the ground and yada yada yada. And now I'm kind of seen as like the expert for something that for me comes easy now to understand it. For others, it's still like a mystery. And also me being able, the way I think I'm able to synthesize down like complex things into very practical steps. And so it felt good. And what started to happen is that I was helping people actually start to land placements. You know what I mean? Like they
Mm,
were either working with me directly or I was just putting them on game. And for the ones that actually implemented the strategies, it paid off with, case in point, I had a young lady who would come to our clubhouse sessions that we would do weekly back in 2020, and she just emailed me probably like a month or two ago saying like, "Hey, Daraj, I just wanted to come back and let you know I hadn't been, you know, super active with trying to get my music, but in TV and film, but I started to, pick it up a little bit." And she had told me she had landed a commercial and it's like an international spot. She's like a French speaking artist. And so she wanted to ask me like, "Hey, I got this spot. What do I do now?" Like it's
right.
been confirmed. And so, it felt good to be able to help, my peers figure this thing out because I've always felt like, man, I know I'm a great artist. I'm a good artist, but I know people who I look up to as far as on the creative side. So I don't say like my music is the latest and greatest and end all be all,
Mm,
by a stretch. But I found out it's not even the best song that wins out. It's just the best positioned song that beats out.
mm,
And so if you're doing the things that you need to do, if you're writing in a very particular way, if you're understanding what brands need, and studying the market right, you have an advantage, you know what I mean? And if you make it easy, for people to license your music, that in and of itself is a cheat code because the thing I always hear about hip hop is just a nightmare to license, you know what I mean? Like just all the copyright,
mm,
hoops and samples and just people not understanding how the business works is just a headache. And so they just
mm.
say, I'm just on to the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you said three incredible things. First, you said you used people. When I say use, not in a negative way, I'm saying on this journey, you tapped into people who you knew had some of the expertise that could help you in this specific instance, right? And that's really, really important because a lot of entrepreneurs feel like and solopreneurs feel like they have to do it on their own, like, and not realizing that, wait a minute, I've worked with this person. Maybe if I ask them, like they were really good at this, maybe they can give me some guidance, and or maybe this person can give you some guidance. And that's what you did. And I think that's really important to tap into the people who can help in certain instances to guide you along. So that's amazing. Number two is when you started getting placements for other people starting getting placements, was that like, okay, this 100% works? And the second thing is, did you have a system at that time? Because the one thing I admire a lot about you is you're very systematic. Like you are the king of systems. You are the king of systems. And to that, I like start using that word more and more and start using that related to what we do with Tribe, what I do with the Tribe is systems. Whereas before I would just be like, oh, this is just this method or this, but I like the word systems, and that came directly from you, and just seeing the way you take all of these complex things, put them in the system, and then, it's amazing. So, did you have a system at that time? This is before the clubhouse. Like, this is just you helping people. Did you have a system that you were kind of figuring out, oh, wait, if I do this, it works? And then probably the answer is yes, but the proof, like that you helping others, was this like, okay, this 100% works?
What's funny is I probably had a system that wasn't realized. So I created my own thing, but I hadn't really said, oh, this is my system until I started to. And that's why they always say, like, the more you teach, the more you learn. You know what I mean? And so as I started to teach people how to do it, I realized I had to reverse engineer. What am I doing to actually see consistent placements? And that's even how we ended up developing the rep method,
Yes.
that we'll talk about later. But
Sure.
and why I love it too is because it's very simple, which is, I'm researching, prior to me ever creating music. I'm researching, validating music. I'm studying. I always tell people, don't watch TV, listen to it, because brands tell you all the time what they want, because every piece of music you see in any piece of cinema legally had to been paid for, you know what I mean, unless they worked out some
Right.
other arrangement. If it was, or else if it wasn't, it's grounds for a lawsuit, you know what I mean? So
Mm.
brands don't play with that stuff. So for me, that indicates that if they use this song and they pay for it, it's a value for them. And I start studying how often is this brand using music like this, or what are their trends, you know what I mean, that I'm seeing,
Right.
and that becomes my template when I go into the studio. Say, all right, we need to make some songs that feel like you can live on a playlist that this song is on, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And start picking that stuff apart. And then we start, reverse engineering the agencies and or supervisors that need that, which that step kind of already happens on the research phase, because if I'm studying the brand, I'm also looking up who was the supervisor that placed it, or trying to find out which agency might have provided music for that spot.
Yeah.
And that later becomes helpful when we get to the end of the process of pitching the music, because now I'm like, hey, I love the work you guys did on such and such show. I'm not sure if you all may need more music similar to what you've already used. Most likely they will, because brands have sonic branding for shows. Here's some, easy, clear, one stop. I use all the lingo that gets their antennas up, like, oh, this person knows what they're talking about.
Wow.
And then I just keep doing it over and over again. You know what I mean? And I just saw that process was winning me and beating out, like, people who were just kind of doing it like a shotgun method, or just other ways that just don't really get you the type of traction you're looking for and work against you. And so that became my process when I looked at it. I was like, and I love it too, because it's so easy. I didn't talk about, in that explanation, I don't talk about marketing on social media. I don't talk about running ads. I don't talk about doing shows. I don't talk about, trying to, get more fans or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, research, make the music and pitch it. That's it. And just do it a lot.
Yeah. And I think the doing part is the toughest part for most people, because
Yeah.
they're like, well, that just seems too easy, so that can't be it. There's got to be something else. It's like, no, man,
Yeah.
this is it. Like, but
Yeah.
the research part of it, of course, is going to take a little bit of time. You got to start listening. You got to, you know what I mean? But I'm probably like you. I love that kind of stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
love that kind of stuff, because then you discover something, like, oh, that's what they're doing. All
Yeah.
right, you know what I mean? That makes you feel good, right? Like, it's like almost panning for gold. You're panning, and finally you get that nugget. It's the same thing for me. Like, if I'm thinking, like, oh, I just figured out how and what they like, or what they're doing.
And you hit it on the head, because one of the core pillars of our community rep indie is the non-sexy stuff, which is the mindset side of the house. Because the thing I always attribute my success to is not my system. It's my mindset, and how I had to become the person ready to land consistent placements, because there is rejection. It's a hurry up and wait kind of game. You know what I mean? So it's not overnight, but it's I can make an argument that it's better than the alternative as far as how people are monetizing their music nowadays. Because notice as well, my method, the things that I didn't talk about in addition to that, is I'm not putting up like budget to do this stuff. You know what I mean? I got a line in the album that I'm writing where I say, I show them how, actually no, it's a freestyle I did. I say, I show them how to make six figures without a budget. And what it means is that the method and way that I teach it, and even how I've done it, is like, you don't need upfront capital to do this. Like, everything that I teach is 100% free. You know, it's like, you can do this without extra, paid software. You can do this without having to pay for beats, without paying for engineering, which all that, like, without paying for studio time. Like, it almost sounds too good to be true, but literally any expense that I'm putting towards my artist career nowadays is just self-imposed. Like, it's just stuff that I'm looking to do and elevate,
Right.
but I don't need it to land placements. The only asterisk I put is, like, if you're doing cover art and photo shoots and all that kind of stuff, you might need
Yeah.
some budget. Even that is like, most artists already have a system for that, but even that side of the house, like, I just did a post in the community where I was talking about it, because I did one photo shoot at the top of this year, and I've used those same photos for this whole year on my social media. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not out here doing a bunch of content. I'm just optimizing and making things more efficient.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love it. Okay. So people listening right now are like, okay, man, so it seems like you have everything under control. What are you complaining about? What's going on here? Right? You're killing it. But I like the fact that you're helping people. So you have this clubhouse, right? And what was that? What was the thing that you either were struggling with that made you say, okay, listen, I think I want this community, more sustainability? Was it a struggle? Was it something that you saw someone else have and say, I think I want something like that? Like, what was it
Yeah.
that made you reach out and say, okay, Funk, what's going on?
Yeah. So, and again, my origin story for even wanting to have a community was because I saw the growing demand for artists wanting to get in this space. And also, I just have a heart to want to kind of reach back and give back to those who I feel like their music deserves that level of exposure, and also monetize in a real way. So I arrived at doing a community because of that. As we started to kind of grow it, I wanted to optimize it so that it could become more of a recurring, additional revenue stream, because, I do put a lot of time, a lot of energy, like, we're offering a lot of value. And so we wanted to find some type of vehicle that would stabilize how we were doing. Because when we first started, it was just a 9-week cohort, and then we kind of sent them off, and that was it.
Right.
And it was priced a little, just shy of like $1,000 for the 9 weeks. And it was great because I think the first launch we had like close to 100 people sign up. So, I'm getting close to six figures just off of a launch, was like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? And, my students are out, now landed, like, we're doing a workshop tonight with one of my students who ended up going full time, like, since taking, our
course.
Our course.
Yeah.
And so, and at the time it was I just called it a course because that's what it was, but we had a community component to it.
Right.
But I was just like, all right, let me try to figure out and evolve this thing, because we're only doing it one time a year. I was like, I want to find a way to open it up, more frequently. And also I knew there was a bit more headspace to increase the price. And so we pivoted from that model to a, kind of closer model where we raised the price. I hired a closer, it went through a whole, I feel like it was a 6-month, kind of process to learn how to just do traditional sales. So I was like, put myself through the ring, which was actually really dope, because I always wanted to learn how to do that. Because a lot of the people that I follow, some of my mentors from afar, like the person who I learned from, Kathy Heller, Amy Porterfield, Jim Rohn, a lot of these folk started in sales. And so I'm like, well, but I didn't want to go get a sales job. So I was like, let me just learn how to sell my own product. So anyway, was doing that for a while. Had some, we made sales, and, it was working. I validated the offer and all of that. But when I brought the closer in, it just wasn't performing the way that we needed to. Even when we got the closer up to getting people to a yes, we just realized, like, we probably should have validated either the price point or the lead that we were getting, because he just wasn't able to close as well. And also there's a, natural just drop off when the owner is not the one closing, when you're having to defer that out. There's a natural, like, we probably won't see as many closings because of that factor. But anyway, so we just found out it just wasn't sustainable after a while. Like, my closer had to leave because, he eats what he kills, kind of thing. And so, but also at that point I'd gotten, we were running so many ads, and like it was costing money, and then it was just costing a lot of time, and it was costing a lot of energy. And then, and I remember too, was, I think it was 2023 when it was, where I'd probably made the most money I'd ever made, and felt like it was all just going right out the door. And it wasn't solely just because of that side of the house what we were doing. There was just some other stuff like with real estate, and just some things that just, better optimizing even how we're handling our finances, which I needed that time, because now I feel like we're way better optimized now, and
Nice.
we budget better. So it's great. But during that time, it was hell. Like, I was just in like I can remember one particular story where like we were at a place where it was very month to month. And it's so weird, because I'm like, bro, I'm making 20K, 30K, 40K, 50, sometimes like 70K a month, you know what I mean? Like, from doing all this stuff. And I'm like, why am I like month to month? Like, what is going on? But we were paying for my wife's, she was, out of town, paying for her,
Hotel.
what is it? Her apartment, paying for her apartment. We had vacancies at our real estate, doing real estate. I got home calls. We were doing a renovation, cash flowing it. You know what I mean? So it was like we were just over leveraged with things. But there was this one instance where I really needed to close a sale. And I got somebody to a yes, and just the little, like, I think it was like 2,800 or 4,800 or something like that, would have just held us over. And he was locked in, got his credit card on. He was like, yeah, you can charge it on this day, because he had somebody to. And then he hit me up day before it closed and said like, yo, I can't. He backed out, and I was just like, I had to leave the kitchen. I went to the parking lot, got in the car, and I just bawled. I was just like, oh my gosh, man, like, I'm praying and literally getting the opposite of my prayers type stuff. So it was just really, really, really tough. And so that kind of exposed to me, man, like, something's got to change. Like, I stopped doing the closer model, because I just felt like it wasn't as alignment as I thought it was going to be after a while. And so, but one thing I discovered is like, we did really well with our ads. Like, we always got more leads than we could actually get on a phone call. And they may not have been able to afford the high ticket offer, but they could probably do a low ticket membership. And my goal was always monthly recurring revenue. Like, how can we make this more sustainable within the business if we're going to keep doing this? Like, because I don't need to do it, you know what I mean? As far as income wise, I can keep running it up. And I've thought about that too. It's just like, I could stop doing coaching and make it real easy for me, you know what I mean? But this is just my heart. I just feel really drawn to it. And I remember I was on the call with the twins. I was telling them, I was like, man, this is kind of like a crossroads where I'm like, I'm not opposed to, walking away from this thing and just focusing in. If we keep experiencing this type of headache, it's just not, at some point, something's got to change. And that's when I just kept following the breadcrumbs, and I settled on, I think I'm gonna do a low ticket membership. So I gotta figure out who does low ticket memberships and can teach me. That's one thing I've learned from 2020. I'm like, I took one course that was it was expensive, more expensive than I've ever paid for anything. It was like $2,000 course, and that $2,000 made me multiple six figures. So I was like, I'm sold. So if somebody knows how to do it, I'm just paying to learn how to do it. Yeah. So I was on the hunt to see who's going to teach me how to build a scalable, sustainable membership. And that's how we got into, I found the membership academy. I jumped in there, and that's how I found you. Because I was very specific. I was like, yo, I was in the forum asking, like, who knows how to run ads to a membership so that we can scale it? And Funk came up. And so I was like, let me just reach out. And what's funny, bro, like, you may not notice, but even how I do outreach to other like brands or companies when I'm pitching my music is the same strategy I use to hit you up. You know what I mean? Because I studied and learned what you were doing, and I shot you a loom, and I was just I try to be it was like no rush on reply, man. If you can, cool. If not, cool. But I would love to just pick your brain if you got the time and even pay you. But you were just, I mean, you're just very generous, you know what I mean, with your time. And I was just so thankful that you took, you know, time out of your busy schedule to like shoot me a 20-30 minute loom of just like what I should be doing. And so, you know, that was really encouraging. And then you were, you know, made me aware of just what you all were doing on the 90-day tribe side. And I was hesitant even moving in at initially because my initial focus was the marketing. You know what I mean? It's like I already had a product that I knew was validated, was vetted. We had people that were paying for it. And even we ended up doing a retention offer on the back end. It was one thing I didn't mention on the back end of the high ticket. And we had people that were in there paying, and I just wanted to scale it. But in talking with you guys, I saw that there was an opportunity to really optimize on all fronts as far as like, yo, let's figure out if I'm going into membership, I do really need to optimize for getting my students results and also how to, you know, keep students in, you know what I mean? And that retention side. And that's what I know Tribe was really big on, is like, how do we create an experience and a customer identity where people feel like they belong, and so much so where they don't ever want to leave. And I was just like, man, you know, I can see how that's going to be beneficial no matter how I slice it, you know what I mean? And I'll also be able to pick you guys' brains on the marketing side, because you guys cover that, but not as in depth of just like the retention side and the identity building, because ultimately, you know, if you got people that are staying forever, you know what I mean, you got a very viable business model. And so get good at that. Yeah, a lot of other pieces come a little easier, which, to let you know too, we've actually got our ads working now. So we're getting like very low cost. It took a while because I was like, after Tribe, I was like, I got to still figure out the marketing piece, but went through another ads training course and, you know, got it up, and now we're getting like less than $1 a lead, you know what I mean, for stuff. So it is like clockwork, you know what I mean? So it's the pieces are falling into place.
Wow, bravo. Love to hear it. And yes, ads do take time. It doesn't happen. But when you have a foundation of what you're building and what you built, it's like, okay, now that I kind of step back from like the transactional thing, because that's really what you were in, those transaction. Let me just spend some time on transformation, which is building out the membership, and then go back to transaction. But really it's just you're getting people in to stay in, because it's easier to keep people in than it's to try to continue to get new people
right.
It's easier to keep people in. And so I got so much we're going to get to like some of the moments you had, but like in regards to some of the change that you made. But the one thing I want to ask you about, and this is just a testament to lifetime members, is that, remember you sent a message to me about someone who has been a long time member for you and wanted to cancel, and I told you what to do. They're still with you?
They're still with us. Yeah.
See, that's what I mean about lifelong members, right? It's like this guy was about to leave. I told you what to do. You did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You sent a video.
Yeah.
Whatever you said in that video, I don't know what the whole thing was.
Yeah. And he actually came around the time. Actually, it might have been a little bit before we first launched, because no, he came from our high ticket side. That's what he came from.
Okay.
He had just been an OG, I guess, if in that sense, but he had but why I was so alarmed, because he was the most active like in our leaderboard and in the community of just stats. Like he was a top guy. He was most enthusiastic. Like we were like, yo, we need more of him. And I'm like, if he's talking about he want to cancel, all right, we need to stop everything. We need to figure out what's going on. Right. But there was some other things there at play that you know, once we talked to him, he actually kind of self-identified with some things that he was going through that just made him a little more reactive. But my just showing up in a particular way did help kind of soothe a lot of that over. So he's good. He's back. He's locked in.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for taking that advice. And I'm glad that it worked out for you. So let's talk about some of the things that you changed. Let's talk about things like method, things like identity, and just some of the other things that you've implemented in that's been like, oh my God, like this is the engagement in your community. So I don't know how and where you want to break that up, but I'm just going to let you go.
Okay.
Like
So
yeah, go.
yeah, I can talk about just the transformation from what the community was to what
Yeah.
it ended up being, and it's very comprehensive because we had already had a community structure. We launched a beta version of our community, which is all prior to Tribe, and it was on the back end of our high ticket,
Mm.
and we just called it Indie XL because the 9-week course was called the Indie Music Accelerator, and we had a name we call we abbreviated version that was Indie XL, and so that was the name. Ended up being the name of the community, and everybody loved it. You know, da, da, da. However, when I was going through the Tribe, model and started to really dig into the niche, you know what I mean, of who we're actually talking to and targeting, and also doing some market research as far as like, are there any other, when it comes to naming and all that kind of stuff, like naming your tribe, are there any other competing names that like, does this really serve the identity of who we're talking to?
Mm.
And so the niche, we were always niche to independent artists and producers is what we would say when we were running ads and marketing. However, that got challenged by UFunk, where it was like, does independent artist and producer kind of speak the same language?
Yeah.
And who are you best serving as well? Like, kind of audit through that. And when I started to really peel back the layers and really look, I'm like, yo, we get majority hip hop artists that come through the door. And that was just like a aha, and it got validated because when I started to look out there, I'm like, yo, there's no other. For one, we're a small community as far as those who are teaching how to get your music, TV, and film, just across the board. When it comes to people teaching how to do this stuff,
Yeah.
there's not a lot. If you're in it, you feel like there's a lot, but there's really not a lot compared to other industries. Like if you go
Right.
try to do like yoga or fitness, it's like
Yeah.
it's a
Everybody.
ton of people. You know what I mean?
Everybody.
And ours, it doesn't even compare. So one is already a very underserved market. It's blue ocean, and that's in that regard. So if you start to drill in further, I'm like, there's nobody that I can readily point to that's serving independent hip hop artists exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, this is a aha. And I know that there's a ton of independent hip hop artists that would love to do
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, jackpot. So like, let's change our language and just say we're talking to independent hip hop artists, which for me, and that's why I was talking earlier, artist just means that front facing artist brand, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that can be in the form of a songwriter that's, writing songs and also performing vocals over a track. And that can also mean a producer
Yes.
who is an artist, you know what I mean? So both are true, which that was one thing I was a little nervous about because I'm like, I don't want to alienate it to be just songwriters, but we focus on artists and why that's important as well, because brands want to work with artists. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that's
Yes.
you know what I mean? So that's where I start. And I didn't realize that until going through this process of like my coming into this space, having already been an artist, was working towards my advantage more than I realized, because you can do this thing completely behind the scenes. I know people that make six figures and they're not on social media. They don't have a front facing brand or any of that kind of stuff. But I do know that it works way more to your advantage if you do have it. And a lot of these artists already have, even if they have a small following, that's enough to show like, yo, this is an artist. Let's use their music kind of stuff. So that was one thing that really stood out, and it helped influence the direction we went on the naming side of the house. And quite frankly, I may have even been able to keep Indie XL if we really wanted to, because it still connects. But when I started to look out there was another Indie XL that was like in another country, but they had just yeah, like, and they Indie XL'd everything. So I'm just like, all right, y'all got it. You know what I mean? It's like, and the branding, side of me, I love that challenge of, thinking of new names, da, da, da. So I'm like, we'll just figure out another name. Like, it's not a big issue. I do it all the time. And we end up landing on something that I feel like is way stronger than what Indie XL was anyway, because this whole, so where we ended up landing on was Rep Indie, and on paper is Rep.Indie. And that dot is very meaningful because it it also reinforces that this is kind of like an online community, so it's like dot blah, 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 blah.
Right. I'm like,
Another
I
little
didn't even know
Easter
that.
egg.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until now. Red dot indie. Yeah, makes total
Yeah,
sense. It's almost like
yeah,
when you do AI, it's like blah 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 dot AI. It's almost like the dot indie is another kind of niche of
exactly.
like if everyone start, oh, I'm an independent, I'm gonna be funk dot indie, right? Funk dot
Right.
because
And
that's
I was trying to get a
oh my
domain like
god.
that, but they didn't have domains where I could do .indie, so I did
Okay.
repindie.club, so it's the next best
Yeah.
thing. But
That's awesome.
that's the angle with it, and also that whole rep just idea
Yeah.
was it grew more than I realized it was going to grow because it was reflect. I was able to make it fit within our method as far as what I
Okay.
actually do. I was talking earlier was like research, execute, pitch. That's what rep stands for. But doubly
Right.
so, yeah, like, but doubly so, rep is just something that's within, the hip hop community is like, yo, rep your city, rep your,
Yes,
rep your fam,
totally.
like rep your
Yeah.
team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's that lingo. And then
Represent,
also,
represent.
yeah, and it's short for represent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're representing like we're the ones representing the new indie is what I call it. You know what I mean? Like we represent the new indie. We also represent independent artists, meaning we support and champion the independent artist identity. And also we wanted to represent what it means to be an independent art. You know what I mean? So it's like, bro, it was layers to it, dog.
That
I
was just a
didn't like,
mic drop for those who are listening.
yeah, man, that was God, like how all of that stuff kind of came out of this one shift, and I was like, yo, this is way better than what we started on.
Yeah.
And again, it's just it puts up this a bit of a us versus them propaganda-ish
Yes.
type of attitude towards it, where it's just
Yeah.
like we are rep indie, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um
Who's the enemy? Who's your enemy per se?
the yeah, the enemy is kind of the traditional way to, I guess, be an independent artist with like trying to be a touring artist or trying to
Right.
run up your streams, trying to build your fan, which again is not something that we're just like never grow your stream. Like all of that kind of becomes a
Yeah.
byproduct. Like our focus is how can we find sustainability in the most efficient way through licensing our music to brands and cutting out
Right.
all the other stuff, because it ends up being a distraction towards your end goal of
Yes.
making sustainable revenue with your music and providing a whole different lifestyle legacy for your family. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
As opposed to like social media. Social media, so like all you're trying to
social
do that. You're
media,
trying to do
yeah,
this. It's like, wait a minute, you're already at D. Let's go back to A and build
yeah,
that out. Then D will happen because you're
because
already getting it. So D automatically happens, probably the byproduct of
right.
doing what you're doing. It will
Duh.
happen.
So that'll be the journey that
Then yes.
we end up taking people on, because that's where I'm at now. Like I'm actually now thinking about my fan strategy, now thinking about my streaming
Yes.
strategy, because again, it's licensing your music at its pure sense is marketing. You know what I mean? It's like I'm
Sure.
marketing my music on the backs of their marketing dollars, not on
Right.
me paying it. And so that's why it's like you can leverage it, because we just got confirmed for a Fortnite placement.
What
Um,
you?
yeah, so
You're
one of our
killing.
songs just got confirmed. It's a
Wow.
it's a nice size check for
I'm
any
sure it
independent
is.
artist.
Wow.
But the thing about it is, and this is the power of licensing, because again, if you talk to any artist of like what they're trying to do right now and how their
Yeah.
strategy is like they're probably trying to run up their followers on social media. They're trying to
Mm,
boost their engagement. They're trying to get more streams, do more shows, all that kind of stuff, right? So with this Fortnite placement, this is the power. I don't know what it'll end up doing, but I've had other peers of mine who have gotten Fortnite placements.
right.
And one buddy of mine, he got one of the I think it was like the new chapters that they roll out like every season, whatever, a season trailer or something like that. And he put that song out on Spotify after the spot rolled out. And
Yeah.
I think that song, I could pull it. I think that song might be sitting at like 20 million streams or something like that.
Wow.
Like
Because,
it's
all right, of course, because it's in the game. Like totally makes sense.
yeah,
It's in the game. Yeah, that happens a lot with even with what's that show where they sing? The singing, oh god, I can't remember. You know the one I'm talking about, where it's the most It's the one I'm talking about. I'll
I
go on
probably
now.
do. I can't. Yeah, it'll come when we're not
But
thinking
but
about it.
sometimes when the songs that they sing on that show, like when Spotify started to become a big thing, they would put
Yeah,
that song on Spotify and it would be number one that the day after because everyone listens to it, and that makes
yeah,
sense with the Fortnite stuff,
yeah.
or with anything that's related to a brand, right? Like, but in a game specifically, like I
And
remember,
they heavy. They're heavy on music. Like that's a part of
right?
their strategy. And you see that a lot in gaming. Like I was at South by Southwest, and they were having panels around the intersection of music and gaming and how much
Wow.
it's evolved. But I just looked it up too. My boy, his name's Kanata. He is the husband of the wife, or excuse me, my manager, who I mentioned. Her
Yeah.
husband is him, who I'm talking about.
Okay.
And that song is sitting at 26 million streams right now. And and again, that's all bonus. You know what I mean? Like they
Right.
got paid up
Right.
front. Now they're getting a,
Yes.
you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like that's all, and they own the track. That's all there. So whatever royalties they got from that thing, like streaming royalties,
Wow.
is all them. You know what I mean? And that's when streaming actually does start to become really sexy because you're doing 26 million off of one song, you know what I mean? Like it's what I think between 1 to 2 million streams is like 5K or something like that.
Wow.
Multiplied by whatever that is, that's a good
Well, yeah.
payout, you know what I mean? So
100%. Yeah, yeah. That's insane. And so, yeah,
yep.
that's where you're at right now. That's incredible. So let me ask you, what do you call your members?
Yeah, we either say it's, we are rep indie or we're rep indie artists. It's kind of
Okay. So that's
twofold.
it. So the rep indie, like the community, it's just called the rep indie community. Is it called the rep indie
It's just
tribe? Is it
called
called
rep
the
indie. It's
Okay,
called rep
so
indie.
I joined Rep Indie. I'm part of and I'm a Rep Indie artist. So it's almost like
Yep.
you're almost a part of a yeah. It's almost like you're being represented by Rep Indie, but
Yeah.
you're
And that's another thing
independent.
I didn't
But
even
you're
talk about
independent. Yeah, yeah,
because
independent.
it's also representing yourself. Like you can rep
Right.
yourself in the market. So
Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
And that's the
So
thing within
independent
our
rep.
industry
Yeah.
is, you can either rep yourself, you can be rep, your songs can be rep by an agency. So it's across the board. Rep, went crazy. But yeah, like we had so there was one of our alumni, OG. He was speaking on a sync panel, a panel talking about music, TV, and film, and a lot of our member shows, probably between like 10 to 15, were at that event. And it's just like, so when they talk about it, they say, "Yo, Rep Indie was in the building," pretty heavy. So that's the
Right.
identity that's there. So
Yes, yes. And you
yeah,
feel like you're part of that identity, specifically if you're part of Rep Indie. You say
yep,
Rep Indie's in the building, everyone's like, woo! And it's like,
exactly,
I want to be
exactly,
who are they? Who are
yeah,
those people, right? And everyone's like,
yeah,
who are they? What's Rep Indie? What's Rep Indie? You start getting that thing and you're part of it. You're like, yeah, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? If
yeah,
you know, you know. Or just go to rep.indie. Okay. Now we talk about the method. So for those who are listening right now, very, very important to have that naming, the identity piece. You just heard Daraj talk about the identity, and even just at that conference when Rep Indie is in the house, you feel like your members are now part of something, right? And they're all looking at each other, being a part of the same thing, brings them much closer. Let's
yeah,
talk about the method because again, the method is very, very important because it's yours, it's your IP, right? It's your
yeah,
intellectual property, and it's a thing that the reason why what you've tried before doesn't work. And like, but man, I'd even tried it, but the reason why it doesn't work is because you're not doing it this way. Yes, you've
right,
tried this, you've tried that. I get it 100%, but you haven't tried it this way with the
right,
rep. What's the method called? Is it the rep
yeah,
method? It's
yeah.
called rep
Rep
method.
dot method is what we
Right,
call
right,
it.
right.
So the rep method. Yep.
Is the dot on all of your stuff? Is the dot part of
I,
your branding?
yeah,
Love it.
it
Love
shows
it.
up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. No, no, because again, it's just the consistency of the brand
Yep.
starting right from the rep indie. So again, listening everybody, the branding is super important. The way you add that to almost everything. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, where this is the rep dot method instead of the rep
Yeah.
method, which aligns with everything that you're doing inside that membership. I love this. And that's a specific method, which is really important because that's what's getting people placements. Speaking of getting people placements, are people getting placements?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. They are. Yeah.
and,
Yeah. It's
and
so interesting because even within the launch that we did, we've
yeah.
had because it's phases to it, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
it can take a while. We say probably between like 3 to 6 months you'll see your first placement on average. You know what I mean? It sometimes take longer, sometimes you get hit and it take shorter, but from what we've seen,
Yeah.
take like 3 to 6 months if you're really working the process.
Yeah.
But on the onset, we like to celebrate like those, those milestones of,
Yeah, let's go milestones. Yeah, let's
um,
talk about that.
yeah. So, our milestones that we're trying to walk through. Well, I want to go back to our method too, but
Yeah,
just,
please.
talk about milestones. They're integrated within our whole, what we call the rep, the Revenue pathway is what we call it.
Okay.
And that's kind of the journey that from as soon as you walk through the door into the place that we want to get you to. So you come in on nothing and we want to get you to Rep Indie Pro status is what it is.
Okay,
And when
so
you're
Rep
Rep
Indie,
Indie,
wow, you're throwing everything. Okay, Rep Indie Pro
yeah,
is
my
the, no, 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 this is good. This is good.
bad.
So Rep Indie Pro is a stat. Like you're gonna get to that status, that point,
Yeah,
that big milestone, Rep Indie Pro. Okay,
yeah,
and you said the pathway. So for those listening, the pathway is the transformation journey, right?
right,
Everyone starts in. This is where everyone starts when they come in, and this is where they get. Some people are gonna get there faster than others, right?
right. Yep,
Okay,
yep.
and
So
they're
we're
paying monthly.
starting,
They're
they're
paying
paying
monthly,
monthly,
right? Okay,
paying
okay.
monthly.
Keep
Yep.
going, keep going. Okay, so okay, the
So the
milestone.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
to the Rep Indie pathway, you start here. They want to give them Rep Indie Pro. There's kind of checkpoints along the way, but some of the things that we want them to be really use as North Stars to know that they're one on the right direction, and also to celebrate their wins is, we want them to finish up what we call the groundwork phase, which is going through our on-demand curriculum, which really goes deeper into our actual method. But that curriculum is called the Rep Indie Playbook, is what we call it. So they go through the Rep Indie Playbook, and that's a part of the groundwork. And also, they need to finish EP, so a branded release EP of 3 to 5 songs. And they needed to have made a certain amount of pitches and all this other kind of stuff. But once they do that, they're eligible for their first, milestone reward. And some people don't even complete that before they get to the next milestone, which the next milestone is getting your music represented. So
Oh,
you can
some people.
still not even finish everything and get your
Yeah,
music represented, but
yeah,
that's
totally.
just how we like to put it. But that's another milestone we want them to get to, because that's a big win. It's an indication of you're on the right path if you have other agencies interested in the music that you're making, so much so they want to sign it, because they're only going to sign it if they see that it has market value.
Right.
So that's big. So we
Yeah.
celebrate that. The next step of that is landing your first placement. And so
Mm,
that's it's obviously a big one.
yeah.
So we celebrate that. And then the step above that is celebrating when you've crossed your
Finished.
first five. No. So we have some other intervals, like some other just milestone and rewards of like when you
Yeah,
get your
yeah.
first 5 figures net, because that's another thing. Because I know a lot of artists want to get like, oh, I want to make like 10K a month, or see 5 figures from doing
Yeah.
music, because it's hard to do on all the art the normal routes. So we
Right.
celebrate when you net your first 5 figures. We celebrate then next when you net your first 50K, and
Wow.
then lastly when you net your first 100K. And so those are
Wow.
kind of the milestones and rewards that we send rewards based on whichever milestone they hit. But those are the things that they're kind of like stretching towards, say like, I gotta get my first, I
Yeah.
gotta get repped, I gotta get a placement, I gotta get my first 5 figures, I gotta get my first 50K, I gotta get my first 100K, you know what I mean? So
Wow. And
yeah.
what are some of the things you send out? You said you send out.
Yeah,
What,
so and we're still, and this is one of those things. This is on me.
yeah.
We're still getting our milestone rewards up, but
Okay.
I'm
I'll
gonna
help
go
you with that.
retroactive and hit up everybody to say
Yes.
like, hey, have you, completed any of these milestones? If so,
Perfect.
fill out this form. We want to get you your rewards, kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But the rewards are different, exclusive T-shirts. So
Yeah,
first
okay,
one is a
perfect.
T-shirt. First rep agency, I think, is a T-shirt. The first placement, I think, is like it might be a package of certain things,
Sure,
like
sure.
a merch bag kind of vibe.
Yes.
I think the 5K, when you net your first 5K, is like an embroidered, like a embroidered
Yeah.
shirt or something like that. And then the last two is a gold and a platinum plaque. So we just kind
Like
of
this.
celebrate them a little different. Yeah, like those in the back,
Do
exactly.
you know where
So
to get those from?
I saw some on Etsy,
I'll
but if
tell
you
you.
got a plug, yeah,
I got a
put me
place. The
on.
place that I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the tribe, that's the place you're going to go specifically for you. I was thinking about you when I was creating my own
yeah,
milestones. I'm like, oh, this is Daraj's milestone place because they
yeah.
do the RCAA record or RCIAA records. Like they do the
Oh,
platinum, they do the platinum, they do all of that. Like they do those records. Those are the
yeah,
trophies
put
that
me
they
on.
actually. And they also have like guitars and stuff. Like it's amazing. So I'm
Okay,
gonna put
put me
you
on.
onto that. That's what you're gonna do for those 100K or whatever the record, because I think it's amazing and they're not that expensive. And I
Yeah,
can also help you with the. I'll also help you with the other stuff in regards to the milestones for the gear, because you just use Printify or Printful, and you
yeah,
create a
yeah.
you create. I just did it for one of my clients. Oh, we just literally did it. He had to send out 400 T-shirts because 400 women hit the first milestone. It was insane. But
That's crazy.
like you know, what is the feeling for your members when they hit these milestones?
Oh man, yeah. So we had so one of our members, he had posted that he had got his music into one of these agencies that are pretty premier. So it's an agency called Lyric House. In context, this is the same agency that I have some of my music with, and they
Mm.
landed us a um the Black Panther 2, one of the Black Panther 2 trailers. So it's a pretty premier
Huge.
agency. But he was trying to get his foot in the door there, and just going through our community process and all that kind of stuff. Like he was able to get onboarded, and so it was just. I mean, he dropped it in our wins,
Yeah,
channel
yeah, yeah.
within it, and then there's another one who we were out at South by Southwest, and so he got a chance to connect with another agency that's kind of hard to get into, and they accepted like 5 or 6 of his records. You know what I mean? And so it's just like it's kind of like no other feeling, because it's just a big boost of like, oh my gosh. We had another young lady who she had actually had been having a bit of a harder go at it, and she was just a bit discouraged about some stuff, and I was able to foresee some areas that she could focus on to help get her across the finish line. But she was just like discouraged. But then literally I think she had prayed and stuff, like literally like the next day she had gotten like a bunch of her songs signed by this one agency, and they just love so it's just what I mean, like it's just wins like that encourage me, and it's validating for them as well to just be that next step of like, man, I'm on the right path. And one of the things I know for us that we're working on that we want to get better with, which is one thing I told you about, is reinforcing the milestones, reinforcing the North Stars, reinforcing where we're going, because again, there's a lot of patience built into just the nature of how we do what we do, or excuse me, our industry. Because what we teach is how to increase the odds in your favor to land a placement. But at the end of the day, every placement I say is a bit of a miracle, because it just has to work for what it is out of the song options that they have. But we teach ways to kind of cut through the noise and give yourself a way better opportunity and chance to see placements. But it is a thing. It's like you have to. It's patience that's built into it, and that's one of those things too. I'm learning how to and trying to foster like how to keep people not getting discouraged or like demotivated from the wait. That's just naturally I have to wait, what I mean, with stuff that's
Yeah.
built in. But I also I'm at a place too where I'm not having to make as many songs as I used to,
Mm.
because I have a lot out there. Like even the Fortnite song we did like a couple years ago, and it just pulled up on something. But I'll
Right.
have just stuff that comes in from me not actively making as much music because I've worked the system. I've made music that just works for me over and over again. So
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that's going to help with that is going to be when you get those milestones out to people and they start posting pictures with their stuff on, because that's going to keep people like, okay, this works. These other people are doing it. Because sometimes people think it's going to do the opposite, where people are going to feel like, oh, I'm demoted. I can't do it. How come they can do it? But it actually does the opposite. People go,
mm,
okay, it works. This does work.
yeah.
I just need to be patient. And then also, if I don't know if you're still doing like weekly coaching or weekly webinars or whatever. Okay, so
Yeah.
you continuously telling them that, hey, yeah, I just got this Fortnite thing from a song from 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That also reinforces. So I think it's very. I'm having something right now with somebody who, they have a community, but they don't want to do the weekly coaching calls, like the weekly coaching. And I'm like, dude, that's like probably the number one thing to
Yeah.
connect you and also help with that journey.
Yeah.
We're going to get to your method, don't worry, but I want
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to just talk about how the weekly coaching calls with
Mhm.
your members have helped them and you.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that we had started
A
earlier
long time ago.
versions. Yeah, that was always a part of, because at one point I wanted to try to see if I could just sell the on-demand training as an evergreen just product, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But and which we tried to do for a while, but
yeah,
I always felt a way about it, because I just know in order to give people the best results, they're going to have more questions and they need accountability and support. And so I
Totally.
kind of never wanted to sell it separately on its own because I'm like, I don't think people are really going to get the best results from it. So
Mm,
we always had that community aspect built in, and that
beautiful.
was us meeting weekly. And the structure for the most part hasn't changed much. Like when we show up on our weekly calls, it's maybe the first 30 minutes or so is a Q&A. The back half of it is a listening session where we're just reviewing their music and giving them feedback.
Nice.
Sometimes I'll have like a soapbox moment where I'm teaching something or doing some mindset stuff. But one thing I've changed at the top of the call is now we do start out with wins and just
Yes.
big small wins, personal wins, whatever, music wins. And I want to start incorporating the milestones and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff a little bit more as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, and another thing we're wanting to roll out is we haven't got our wall of fame up, but I want to incorporate that into our weekly calls. So that's why I think weekly
Yeah.
calls are great because we'll post in the community, but also to be able to like brag to say like, hey,
Yeah.
y'all, we got some new inductees on the wall of fame, or we
Yeah.
got new folk who have hit different milestones, and look out for your rewards and all this other kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah. It's
just
great.
like more motivation that we've yet to do that we're still in process of
Working on.
rolling out.
Yeah, and that's good because your membership and community will never stop changing or growing, right? Because things
Yeah.
like I'm having to add Alpha AI, which is now my going to be my AI
Oh,
voice. I have to add it now because you guys are like, hey man, like I know that we have Ask Funk and you answer all our questions every week through a video, but it would be great like if it's 2 a.m. and I had a question and I could
right.
just ask Funk and Funk's voice can come up and go, yeah, this is what you're going to do based on my programming and everything that's up here. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the addition, and it's not just like I didn't even think about that. These guys kept
The
asking
members.
about it
Yeah,
for like 4 or 5, 6 months, and so now we're in the midst of doing that. But
that's dope.
let's go. So you're always changing, and that's the other thing. If you're listening, if you have a membership, that's an actual good thing when you keep adding different things to your membership or keep changing things or listening to what they're asking for because
Yeah.
it keeps people excited. And I think that you're doing a great job of that. I got three more
One
things to ask you about. Yeah, go,
One
please.
thing I was going to add to just the weekly calls,
Yeah,
and one thing I try to do also to make sure, because I do think that you can potentially add too much stuff where people feel overwhelmed, but I
yes,
feel
yes,
like the cadence of a once a week kind of check in with everybody, and even within that, we do certain things like it's usually like two calls that are me, you know what I mean, and I'll
yeah,
show up, and then one call is a special guest that we bring in.
beautiful.
And then our fourth call is actually a community led meetup. So I'm
Yeah,
not even there. You know what I mean? Like I have some some alumni that curate their own things.
wow.
And so it's dope. So it kind of gives me a day off, but also because I wanted to build something that could over deliver, but also not like have me running wild. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah, yeah,
doing
yeah, for sure.
too much, but
Yeah,
you can structure it in a way, and I feel like this still provides a lot of value. Like people love the cadence of it, and don't feel like they're missing out on stuff, and people get
right.
replays and all that. So,
Exactly. That's amazing.
yeah,
Okay, so let's three more things before we go. I mean, this is
go
so
for
much.
it.
First, and the other thing too, man, is I'm so proud of you. The like this, I'm excited about what's to happen. I'm gonna help you too. Like,
Thank you, man.
there's certain things that you just plug that in, and it's gonna be great. And the fact that you're bringing people in the front door now, right?
Yeah.
Or they're on the wait
Well,
list.
we have. So I took your advice where I was just like, I didn't open it up, so I felt like we got a chance to really see how the mechanics are
Yes, yes,
working.
yes, yes,
And also too, just side
yeah,
note, like you're doubling down on just like being immensely focused on getting your people results has
yeah,
been drilled in my head. And so I haven't been like pressed to open up the doors yet because I'm like, I just want to keep prioritizing, and we're doing other stuff to help bridge the gap and help people. But I haven't been this focused on getting people results. I've always been focused on it, but it's way
yeah.
more deliberate now. But yeah,
Yeah, and you probably have a ton now that when you open now, you're gonna have a whole slew of look at all these testimonials on that page, and it's just gonna be like so again, one of my other clients, same thing as you. It's so funny. We opened his founding members launch on January. Okay. And with the goal, okay, 90 days, I told him it's only going to be 90 days, right? Because, of course, people are like, oh man, I don't know if I want to close for 90 days, blah, blah, blah. It's 5 months now, and he still hasn't
I
open.
remember you saying that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's insane. It's like, no, but now, because now we have a store. Now we have supplements. It's okay, let's just do the supplements first, and then we'll open. I'm like, oh, this guy's cool with it. But he's got 4 or 5,000 people on his wait list, like that are
Oh, that's
waiting,
crazy. Yeah,
knocking
yeah,
on the door. And I think with your ads right now, that wait list is starting to build.
yeah,
And I think anytime now, we'll talk offline, at a later date, but anytime now, you could be ready to just open it up because you
yeah,
have, like, I think the milestones part is going to be important. So just getting that system into place so
yeah,
that once your current members are going to start, there's going to be super happy. Like when these women got their milestone t-shirts, it was just like a boost of like, okay, I'm ready to go to phase 6 now. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Phase 4, 5, and 6, that's 3 more months of them paying, right? I want that next one, right? And plus other people seeing them through that. So I think that's going to be good. Okay, so 3 things. The first thing I want to talk about is your method. You want to go back to talking about your method. The
yeah.
second thing I want to talk about is platform. I know we have a lot of time, but what platform you're using, because I don't think we talked about that. And then the final thing I want to talk about is what you think AI is going to do to music, and are
Mm.
you doing
We
things inside
always
your
get this
membership?
question.
Okay, are you doing inside your
We
membership?
always get
Yeah.
this question. That's so
Okay,
good.
so let's
Yeah.
talk about the method, because you said you wanted to talk about that method, and I think the method's really important.
Yeah, real quick. So our method, is it literally built into the DNA and identity and the naming of our community. So we have our rep method, which is again research and refine, which means just validating your music, studying the market, figuring out what brands want, researching who's, where you, and also researching where you want to go as an artist with your music, you know what I mean? So it's all within that research, component. And then once we get clear on that, we actually start to execute and make that type of music based off of our research because it's heavily validated now
Right.
versus you just making something you think works for brands is just not a good strategy. And then once you make the music, you then go out and pitch it, you know what I mean? And pitching has its own strategy, but it's high level, but it's coupled with, again, our Rep Indie playbook, which
Mm,
goes into each one of those things a lot deeper.
sure.
And the way we built our on-demand training is that we let them know, all right, for this module, you're still within the research and refine phase, you know what I mean, of the Rep
Right.
Indie method. So we're
Yeah.
just walking them through and we chunk it down to say like, all right, now you're in the execute phase. And this is all stuff you do for execute because there
Cool.
are, nuances and things that you need to know and do specifically, but that's what our playbook is for. And we have other resources for them, like checklists and pitch scripts and templates and all this
Hmm.
other kind of stuff. But so that's kind of the bulk of our method. And once you get to the end of method, you just start back over. And that's where
Yeah,
that
that's insane.
refine part comes in. It's research and
Yeah.
refine because you're refining based off of what you learn and you just keep doing it over and over again. And that's been my method since I started this thing. I put myself through that method still to this day. Nothing's changed.
Which
And it
is
works,
perfect
you know what
because
I
you're
mean?
living. That's an important part of
Exactly.
being a tribe leader is you live what you do. It's easy for you to validate and talk about and continue to talk about and teach as well, because you're probably coming up with new, like, as the world starts to change, because we're going through a very rapid change right now. And
Yeah.
so as the leader who's going through this as well, because you're going through it, you're also going to experience the change that these people are experiencing, which I think is really, really important.
Yeah.
What platform do you use right now?
Yeah, Kajabi all day.
Okay, Kajabi. Did you get a Kajabi plaque yet?
No,
Okay, we're
I
gonna
didn't
get you
know.
one.
All right.
I mean, I'm not gonna get you one,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
Kajabi
We
does
probably
send
be
one.
eligible for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
probably yeah, you probably just have to go in and
yeah. I'll look
find it.
into it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I love Kajabi because
Yeah,
I can do everything through there. Our community's there, the on-demand
yeah,
training's there, and at some point we want to build an app. You can do that through Kajabi. So it's a
yeah.
lot of stuff that Kajabi can do and consolidate.
Cool. That's awesome, and you like it, and it's easy to use, which is good. Okay, the third thing I want to talk about. Why did I say I put podcast down? Do you go on other people's
Oh.
podcasts? I don't even know why I put that down, but do you go on other people's podcasts? I know I put
Well,
podcasts.
I have maybe a different take on podcasts, but yes, I do occasionally when I get invited. I've been
Yeah,
and talked about this on people's podcasts, which would love to do more of that. But I'm actually running a lead magnet right now, which is to a free private podcast,
love it,
if that
love it.
makes sense. So,
Of
yep,
course, I love it. That's you should also have a podcast after you get the foundation done. You need to have a
exactly.
podcast. You have so much knowledge in this. It makes sense. Okay, let's talk about AI
AI, yeah.
and like what's going on in AI in your industry and how are you adjusting to it? Oh, I know I wanted to ask you. Keep going.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, it's funny because I literally get this question all the time. It's always on panels. I was at South by Southwest. They had so many music and AI conversations, but and it makes sense. So for us, thankfully, I don't think our industry, specifically, sync licensing is what it's called, will really experience too much of the what most people are scared of and disruption, because the nature of what we do is so focused on intellectual property. And the big problem with AI when it comes to music and creation is that these models are being trained off of something, and that something is existing IP that is just so, the algorithm does such a good job of pulling other pieces of data and spitting out something new. It's hard to detect where it came from, but it's being trained off of actual copyrighted material. And so because the clients that we have, the agencies, the music supervisors, and the brands that they represent, they are very, very like lawsuit averse. And so they don't want to, like, they won't take music unless they know 100% that it's clearable. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
So we've had agencies reach out to us and let us know, like, hey, you have to let us know if you're using AI, or we just don't take music that's been created via
Oh,
AI.
oh.
Yeah, so
Because
that's why.
is that just because of the law? So, for instance, is that only because of the lawsuits? Because I know that right now, that's the whole thing. Is like there isn't. I know that a lot of the AI community is, well, I mean, I guess it's split, but are like they don't want that intellectual property because they feel like if I'm creating something right now, and if I'm a producer, I may like Wu Tang music. I may like Redman. I may like Lil Wayne, and my music is kind of like a mishmash of all three. Right?
Hmm.
I'm not taking the actual music. I'm just kind of like taking the style
Hmm.
of like of Wu Tang, of like mathematic, like whoever the producer, and I'm creating my own thing, and
Hmm.
that's generally what AI is doing. If you're like, I want you to create a song that has a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this
The
type of
difference.
style, not the actual song, and then put it together. Because are you finding artists and producers are using AI as well to create music?
Yes and no. It depends
Okay.
on the. So
Mm.
I want to unpack
Yeah,
this a little
just
bit.
go
This is
back. Yeah.
really good because
Yeah. Okay.
what you're saying is because that's music in general. Like when you listen to music, there's going to be. That's why you hear so many artists that sound like other artists, because if it's
Totally.
hot, other people are going to do it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
even within that, it can get a little nuanced, but
Yeah.
most often it's okay because it's art, it's creative. Like there's
Yeah.
certain rules of engagement where it's like you can do this certain stuff, even if it feels similar, whatever. But there are musicologists that will, like, if a label or somebody thinks it's too close to something, like
Yeah.
they will call in a lawsuit around it. But the difference with this is that AI is not necessarily, like, AI is actually using the master and composition of existing
Music.
intellectual property, which
Right.
is almost like a form of sampling in a sense. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
so
Okay.
it's not like it's just generating, at least from my understanding of it. Somebody could tell me different. My understanding
Yeah.
with it is being trained on the master, is being trained on the copyright, or excuse me, the composition, the publishing side of the record, which is copyrighted. And so in order to use any component of it, you need somebody's permission. So it's different if I'm inspired by something,
Yeah.
I make my own thing, versus, oh, I like their song, I'm gonna take bits and pieces of the actual recording and put
Right.
it into my song. Cause
Okay.
so it's different in that regard. So that's why it's like, and it does it well where you probably can't really connect the dots of where it came from, because of just how these models build these new compositions that they're putting out, these new
Yeah.
records. But there's still that understanding of, like, a computer's not creating, out of thin air. You know what I mean? Like, it's being trained on, stuff that's already on the
Yeah.
internet. And so it's
Yeah.
just a different protocol.
Yeah.
So that's
Now,
why they're scared of the threat of, like, somebody figuring out how to undecode this stuff and figure out, they use my song and I can prove it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So the new language, from what I recall, because I'm just finished. Literally tomorrow is my last day semester in my so basically I'm at Harvard and doing my master's, and this last course was all AI. So I just took it
Oh,
was innovation and creativity in AI. And every single week we had guests come in who used AI to, whether it was illustration, whether it was music, whether it was creating like films, everything, right? And my guy is the AI. My prof is the AI king. Even Rick Rubin, okay, even Rick Rubin. And basically, with the new LLMs out there, they don't take the actual song. They take the style. They don't take the music. They take this now the new models. They don't take the
oh,
music. They take the style. They know, okay, this they will listen to 900 Redman songs and go, okay, I kind of
right.
figure out the style. They'll take 1,000 Wu Tang songs and figure out the style, and then
Yeah.
it will combine both of them into its own style of music. So not like the song I'm taking, Shame on a and I'm taking,
Yeah, and it's
and
compositing it into
no,
its
it's
own
just taking a
thing. It's just
style.
learning
Yeah,
from it. Yeah.
it's
So
learning.
I would say
It's
that's
learning.
probably a more like that type of model would probably be more acceptable if
Yeah,
some way they can,
yeah,
explain
yeah,
to a
yeah.
layman how the tech is working and that
Totally.
they can ensure and even put some guarantees in there that
Yes.
this is not actually taking any of the hard
Mm,
recording
right.
is just referencing it how a person would, then that you got a different conversation. The other thing I would say could be a solution to using AI in a way that doesn't scare, our industry is if
Yeah.
people actually did sign over, like if I were to give my catalog to an AI company and say like, hey, you have my permission to reference and learn from and every stakeholder on this song is giving you permission to train your models off of it. If there was a company that did that, I feel like it would probably change the game as far as brands using it more
Totally.
liberally.
Yeah.
Our industry is usually a lot slower to adopt stuff, and
Sure.
also
Sure.
because of the nature of the supervisors that curate music and stuff,
Mm,
they really champion music that's been made from people.
yes.
They're
100%.
still, until I feel like a new generation of supervision kind of comes through and a new
Yeah.
generation of brands comes in, maybe the Gen
Yeah.
Zs and they're more friendly to that. I feel
100%.
like they probably won't want to, really
Rock the boat.
champion. Yeah, it's like they're not, and also they don't even, and also too, some of the stuff that I'm hearing now with AI is cool, but it's hard to kind of get it to what they actually need, but
Sure.
and quality wise and all that kind of stuff. But I'm actually pro AI. I like it,
Yeah.
and I've been playing with it a bit, but it's also like I do feel like it'll take a little bit until it's at least what I'm exposed to right now. There probably
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
stuff out there that's really doing like some crazy stuff that's like,
Yeah.
oh, this out the box. Like we could use it right now. But in my
Totally.
experience, some of the stuff that they create off of the prompts is like, I can maybe use some of this, you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
still not, it's still going to take a big human component
Sure.
to get
I agree with that. I think that's
yeah,
the thing about the creativity portion of it. It's not like it's going to take over, but it's going to be like there'll be human, like the human component is always important for
yeah,
creativity. However you put it together and get your inspiration from the human, it's the human component that's going to really make the music that people want, I think.
yeah.
It's funny, I was watching like in the MMA space, there was a new it was called the GFL, and it was going to be this new MMA uh, company who was going to do fights and everything. And so they had this big draft. And so they're doing this draft with all these older fighters. And then the song comes on. And it's like, that doesn't sound like a real song. And then you start to see the images of the people, they're coming out in like their Spartan uniform, but they was all AI generated. So the whole thing was AI generated, the song
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah, yeah,
And it was kind of like, I'm definitely not against AI, but you could feel there wasn't any soul
like,
to
yeah,
that
it's missing the
song.
soul out
It was
of
it
it.
was missing the like there's nothing to
and
it, man. There's nothing
and I
to it. Again,
think
maybe in the future you'll be able to add soul, but to this there was just
I
no soul.
1000% like it's gonna get to a point. At least if this is the first version, I can only
Yeah,
imagine. But one thing I was curious about is that if somebody doesn't know it's an AI generated song and it
yeah,
does convince them,
yeah.
once they realize it's an AI generated song, how does their relationship now change? Like how did
Right.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then there are, I think the younger generation is probably more
Oh,
used
they're
to that
there.
and more
Yeah,
okay with that.
totally.
Our generation and older,
Yeah.
once we learn that this song is AI, it's like, it's good, but now I feel a little different about it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally. Totally. It's just yeah, it's just natural.
yeah,
Okay. Couple more things. What do you think about? So you mentioned something about the not the sales. You were mentioning more about like after you get the foundation of what Rep Indie gives you, um, there's that next step of teaching these artists how to do social media, how to do some of the other things that they may have wanted to go to at the beginning, but now with this new foundation of being a Rep Indie, do you think that could be something you could add to your membership as okay, this is the
yeah.
next phase. I'm going to teach you guys how to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we built out the Rep Indie playbook where it's season one that people have access to. I think you remember that.
Yes, I
Season
do.
two, I want to, and I haven't built season two yet. I have ideas
Yeah.
for it, but
Yeah.
I was waiting to get more data to see what we can put in there. But some of that ideas I had was how to do the social media side a little bit more intentionally, but again, through the Rep Indie way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course,
Because
of course.
my
Yeah.
my strategy is way different as far as how I leverage social media. But that'll also get into more advanced strategies because I'm now experimenting with how do
Learning.
I grow my fan base, followers, and all that
Yeah.
other kind of stuff
Yeah, yeah.
as an artist who prioritizes licensing. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad you're doing that. So, all in all, your experience with the tribe method and where you're going, are you happy with it? I mean, it sounds like you have some really exciting things happening moving forward.
yeah, it gave me so much more like it gave me so many more opportunities that I didn't realize already existed within the idea that I have. It gave me a
Yeah.
lot more hope for what this
Yeah.
thing could be, and even without having added, more members and even hitting the revenue goals that we will pace towards,
Yes.
just focusing on getting good at the foundations of the services and the that we're providing to people. I think
Yeah.
that level of transformation in me was like super beneficial, and so I feel a lot more grounded and um, confident that we're doing it for the right reason, providing the right support, and we have something that we can really scale
Yeah.
well, however we end up scaling it. So
I think what you're doing is incredible, man. And like I said, the foundation is there. It's like now have like that confidence again. So we're always continuously building confidence with new things that we've created.
yeah,
To like once those doors open, because I'm like excited to get those doors open. You already have that. Like I don't have to go back and like do things like of course you're going to
right,
do the weekly coaching and stuff to guide people through, but it's like okay, I've got that foundation and it works. I know it works because all these
right,
people
yeah.
here. So like now when you're opening up, it's just filling up, and then yes, it is a lot of ads, and it's getting those ads or that one or two ads, and if you can get that one ad working to bring people through the door, and you continuously get those transformations and you're building on the back end, get the milestones, dude, like this is, and then the great thing about it is as things continue to evolve, your membership can evolve and everyone's
Right.
evolving with you. Like, okay, guys, we're adding this season two. Season two is going to be about marketing and sales and not sales, but marketing and just growing your own social
Fan
media platform.
engagement. Yeah.
Season
Social.
three, okay, guys, it's time. AI is now here. How do we embrace it?
Right.
That's season
Right.
three. But the whole time, people don't have to like leave and go somewhere else, right? Because they're still doing what they're doing, but they're doing it with you in this tribe amongst people who they've known for years, right? Because I
Hmm.
got guys who have been in my who go to other of my other memberships, but everyone still stays inside the brotherhood community, but everyone goes to different kettlebells or whatever. So you always will have that. So I think that that's great, and what you're doing is fantastic. Any last words? First of all, where can people find you? I really appreciate you being here. Where can people find you? Yeah, give us your social handles so that we can
Absolutely.
plug it, please.
Yeah. 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 I don't know what'll show up on the replay, but at Just Deraj is on everything social media, and that's JustDeraj. website, justaraj.com. One thing I didn't mention, we also have a boutique music house called See and Hear. And we focus on hip hop, pop, R&B for TV, film, games, ads, trailers. So we ourselves represent and pitch music. So you can check us out there at weseeandhear.com. And obviously, repindie.club is our flagship community. And yeah, we're just super excited to see all the growth that we're going to have with this.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. I love it. Oh, you just said, see now you just opened up another door with See and Hear. Are you taking, one last question, are some of your members in See and Hear?
Yes.
See? You just added another value bomb. That's another value bomb for being inside your membership is, oh, by the way, we have this too. Oh, dude. Okay,
yeah, we part. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
We're gonna do another. That's when you get the milestones and everything out. Once you get all that out,
it's another vertical within
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. All right, buddy. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Funk.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tribe Membership Show. If you're ready to take your membership to the next level, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Want to dive deeper? Visit www.tribesecretsbook.com.